It begins like this. Basic research to cope with the space age we're living in. Concerned with utility, style, designers, engineers. New materials are the things that people really want. That's the basic problem.
Freakish History takes a deep dive into stranger-than-fiction historical events and plops the listener down in the middle of the bizarre and compelling action. In Season 1, we head to Cleveland, Ohio for the 10-cent beer night riot of 1974. Welcome to Heading for Home, a 10-cent beer night riot Odyssey. I'm Eric Olsen. Every year, the media celebrate the anniversary of the 10-cent beer night riot of 1974 at Cleveland Stadium. This is the 50th anniversary. This is that story in 6 compelling podcast episodes.
Perfect.
Any baseball game has lots of things that happen. You have 9 players at any given time on each team. You're changing pitchers, etc. So that complicates things. This was a game that took place on a Tuesday night on June 4th, 1974. As so often happened, especially longer ago, brawls were somewhat more common, I think. By the way, I have no problem whatsoever. I'm not one of these hard cases where I'll never recognize that the team is called the Guardians. Not at all. I understand why they made the change. It was a perfectly reasonable thing to do. But of course, at the time, they were the Indians. There were 2 daily newspapers, a radio station that covered 35 states and half of Canada. Every day, whipping up the crowd. Okay, they're coming to town, we gotta be ready. We're gonna go after them. Imagine this happening today. In the newspaper, there was a picture of Chief Wahoo in boxing gloves. It's a perfect storm with 10-cent beer night. And it's literally that, 10 cents for a beer. So in theory, 6 was the limit, but that was, shall we say, loosely enforced. There were definitely some issues, some structural issues. Absolutely not enough security. It was a full moon. Because it was beer night and probably because there was all this media attention, there was a large crowd, about 25,000, much bigger than usual on a Tuesday night in early June in Cleveland. It wasn't the typical crowd. It wasn't hardcore Indians fans, which tend to be older people, families. This was a lot of young people. It was teenagers, it was high school people, and college people. Key factor that a lot of people today don't realize, the drinking age for beer was 18. On top of all of that, there was all kinds of pre-partying before the game. People drinking, smoking weed on the trains on the way downtown. There was a report of people hauling an entire 5-gallon cooler of pina coladas onto the train, and people then, of course, drinking freely pina coladas. There was even a fight in the stands between one of the beer vendors and a fan before the game even started. As the game progressed, things happened very quickly. The Rangers scored 2 runs, had a couple of home runs. People were not happy. The fans were expecting this mighty beatdown by the Indians on the Rangers, who were evil. And that wasn't happening. First major outside of the norm thing that happened is a middle-aged woman dressed in business attire worked her way, shimmied her way from the stands onto the dugout, then down onto the field, then lifted her blouse and liberated her bouncy load. Much to the amusement and astonishment of the fans in the field and the players. She went over to one of the umpires, tried to kiss him. He's like shoved her away. As it turned out, she had been one of the people drinking pina coladas. So all this was going on. That contributed to this atmosphere of underlying rage. And when you add in the fact that there were so many young people and there was so much beer, I mean, essentially free, strange things are happening. After the second home run that made it 2-0, a fan streaks from first to second and slides into second base naked. Imagine the strawberry. The ball game is going on. People are getting more and more wild. They're setting off M80s, maybe M100s. The game isn't going their way. It's 3-1. Eventually the game is 5-1. This was supposed to be vengeance. People are starting to really misbehave. The later it gets in the game, they are going farther and farther out onto the field in between innings, and they're sort of showing off. There's people doing backflips. A lot of odd behavior going on. The pitcher for the Rangers, Ferguson Jenkins, who was such a great athlete, but he caught a line drive right off of his knee with it resounding with this terrible crack. The fans didn't go, oh no, oh, we're sorry, we're concerned. They started screaming, hit him again, harder, harder. People were vicious. Throughout the game, we have explosions. We have fans leaking onto the field in between innings. Later on, at some point in the 5th inning, I believe, there's padding on top of the fence along the outfield. On the left field side, they started ripping the padding off the fence. When the 7th inning stretch came along, most of the normal people left. Meanwhile, in between, scattered throughout the game, yet another set of streakers. You had a guy run onto the field, throw a tennis ball, then follow the tennis ball. Then another guy ran onto the field and got the tennis ball, threw it back to him. And then you had the father and son moon team run out onto the field, and like synchronized swimmers, they bowed to the stands, then turned around, and remember, this is a full moon, in perfect unison, mooned everyone in the stands to great merriment and applause. It's just getting wilder and wilder. Finally, the night. Believe it or not, the tribe tied up. People are actually starting to pay attention. Meanwhile, there's been an announcement.
Ladies and gentlemen, the beer stands have run out of beer.
Ah, boo! Ah, you sucker! Oh, I hate you.
However, the beer trucks have been made available on the grass between the bleachers and the outfield stand.
Oh, why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you say so? Hundreds, if not thousands of fans make a beeline for the grass beyond. Young women who were there serving were so put upon that they gave up, ran away, and the trucks were left unattended. The umpire had said, okay, we're moving you in. People have been throwing firecrackers at them, literally making them dance. Move the players into the dugout. People are dropping firecrackers down into the dugout. The entire Rangers team heads out onto the field. People in the stands see this. They pour onto the field. The Indians see this and they think, oh my God, we got to protect our fellow baseball players. The Rangers from their own fans. So now you have hundreds, eventually perhaps thousands of fans pouring onto the field, many of them armed. People have ripped out seats out of the concrete from the stadiums and broken up the seats so that they have pieces of metal.
Like Stonewall.
Like Stonewall! Baseball players armed with bats. It is a full-blown riot. It's 5-5. The Indians could win. It's the bottom of the ninth. There is madness everywhere. They had to forfeit the game. And this was a huge, huge deal. It is remarkable. It is miraculous that no one was killed. I mean, even if someone just slipped and hit their head, baseball players whipping bats around, fans armed with big chunks of metal.
How many people do you think were conceived that?
With all of the energy, you know, we should probably look that up. Was there a blip? So that is the tale. It's based on my wife, Dawn Olsen, and my novel. We want it to come out this year. It is also called Heading for Home. We did all this research, so it is a historical novel. But we tried to keep everything as true to life and to the facts as we possibly could. We did create a family and interject them into the action. But beyond that, it's all true. You can find it on any podcast outlet. The name of our overarching show is Freakish History. And the name of this season 1 is Heading for Home, Intensive Fahrenheit Odyssey. And that's that. Thank you so much for letting me tell the tale.